Okay, so how do we actually fire the engine? Well, the concept is very simple. There's only three controls that you have as a fireman. There's the atomizer steam, there's the fuel control, and then there's the blower. That's about it. And the job of the fireman is um, to balance these three controls to get the engine into the energy state um, that it needs to be in. By energy state, we mean if we're pulling out of a station, we're going to be using a lot of steam. So we'll have to turn up the fire control to keep up with the steam usage. Whereas we're stopping right now, we're not expecting to really use steam, so the fire is turned down appropriately. You as the fireman will need to anticipate um, what condition the engine will be in, how much steam will need to be used, and it is your job to stay ahead of that. And meanwhile, all this, you are also in charge of the water here. There's a little bit high. That's okay because we're just gonna be sitting here and learn how to use the control. So the basic is very simple. Of course, you control the fire with the fuel valve down here, the brass handle. Um, so if you think of it, we'll go backward, thinking about what kind of temperature or pressure you need first, and then that will equate to how much fuel to use, and then that will equate to how much steam pressure to use in the atomizer. And along with that, there's also the blower to help us out. Now, for practice, in practice, when we operate the fuel atomizer, when we need to increase the fuel, the steam goes first, and when we need to decrease the fuel goes first. We'll cover why that is in a little bit, but first, let's just get a basic sense of what a good firing will look like. So this is an um, interesting part about steam operation. In this cab, there are no gauges to help you out necessarily for arguably the most important part of the engine, which is firing. Um, there's no gauge to tell you how much pressure is in the atomizer or what the fire temperature is. You really have the boiler pressure, and you have your senses. In the sim, we can see the color and the condition of the fire, and as well as our hearing, we listen to how the fire responds to our firing. So what we have here, this is a good starting point to look for in your fire. The color is kind of a pale orange, yellowish. It's not excessively flickering. It's a giving a steady glow. What you need to learn as the fireman is what to look for when it is not in the right condition or right mixture. So, for example, you need to be able to recognize what it looks like when there is too much steam pressure in the atomizer. So, if we take this fire and add a little bit more steam, you can start to see that the fire is flickering much more rapidly. And that's because with the excessive amount of steam in the atomizer mixture, the the excessive steam is now blowing out all the diesel droplets, resulting in a cooler fire. Now you see the fire turn from orange to red, indicating a cooler fire than ideal, as well as excessive flickering. So if you recognize this, you would want to turn down your pressure steam until you get back to that condition. And if we turn a little bit too far the other way, we get smoke. Smoke comes from excessive fuel in the atomizer mixture, resulting again in a lower burning fire, lower temperature fire, and the excess diesel is being burned as up as smoke. So once you recognize this, you'll once again turn up the steam atomizer until you get back to this balanced condition. Easy. Another visual cue that the fireman will be using is looking out ahead at the smokestack. So there's a black kind of a circle or ellipsoid there. That is a bug. It's not actually there, but if you open the window, it goes away, and that's just from the heat blur effect. So when we look out ahead, if we have excessive amount of fuel, you'll get fire. You get smoke out the fire door, but also of course out the smokestack. So you'll want to be looking out ahead for a clean stack, as well as clean cab, of course. Just like that. Another cue to listen for are the sounds. We're about to pop the safety valve here, so I'm gonna set this up so that we don't have to listen to the safety valve. The other cue to listen for are the sounds. So if we have too much steam, once again, listen to also the change in the sound of the fire. You'll hear the thuds and the rumblings of fire in response to the flickering. And if we go the other way, where we have too much fuel, we'll also hear this kind of like a drumming sound, and that's just the excessive spurts of fuel being burned up, resonating the side of the firebox. I don't know how well this comes across on a YouTube video, but all these little sound cues are present in the sim, and you as a fireman will be listening. Will have to listen closely to it. We're still building up pressure. I'm gonna back this way down. So once again, to back down the fire, we start with the fuel, and then follow it up with the steam to match. In real life, because you have two hands, so you could do this simultaneously. But in the sim, we do the fire and then the atomizer. As a last resort, you could always open up the status menu, and it is going to tell you whether the atomizer is too high or too low, and that can help you out. The range for this message to pop up is very, very small, so it can help you very finely tune. Go too high? Oh, there it is. Very, very small amount. So sometimes even as we have a good mixture of fire, because we're standing still, there is a limited amount of draft of air getting into the fire as we're not moving. So the third control that we have at the disposal is the blower. Especially useful when we're at a stop. You can open the blower, which will shoot out a shot of steam out the smokestack that helps create a draft, traveling from behind the cab through the peephole, out through the tube and then out the smokestack. So because we open blower that helps suck out the smoke that would have been in the cab. So if we turn this off again, we might get smoke. There it is. So we have a little bit of smoke coming out of the box. We turn up the blower a little bit to help remove that smoke. That's really all there is to firing the steam locomotive. Recognize what a good fire looks like. Recognize the signs if there's too much steam or too much fuel and how to adjust accordingly. Learn how much fuel to use at certain situations. For example, at a stop, at a standstill, we're not expected to move, so the fire is turned way down. However, if we need to build steam, because we're anticipating that we're gonna be moving in just a few seconds or minute here, you want to have a target in mind of how much fuel you want to use, and that just comes with experience. If you look down on the fire stick, when the handle points to what I like to call it 9 o'clock position, so point directly to the left, that would be fully closed. And when it's pointing to 6 o'clock position, that's when it's pulled all the way back, that would be fully open. To get going, to build steam, let's say we want to get to 150, I would expect about 8, maybe 7:30 position. Now remember, to do that, we're gonna go with the steam first, and then the fuel, and then maybe steam again, and then fuel. So that is about where I want to be. So once you get the fire, once you get the fuel to where you expect you would need, then you adjust the atomizer to match. This looks pretty good. A little bit of flickering there, so we're gonna see if we can dial this down just a bit. I'm gonna keep the blower on. That will help build pressure as well. So now we watch the gauge. So if I'm looking for 150, I might turn the controls back down when we hit 140 or so. It's gonna keep climbing a little bit, just from the momentum of the thermal. Of course, all this gets a bit more complicated when the engine is actually in motion as well, because the boiler is not in a steady state condition. But that is for a different lesson. Okay, so we're about to hit 140. Okay, first the fire, then the fuel, then the atomizer. So if you remember where the fuel stick was for a stop, it was somewhere around here. We'll turn the steam down. Then we just about hit 150 there. Likewise, if we are trying to keep at least 125, when this needle drops down to maybe 130, that's when we want to start firing. So you want to be ahead of the pressure, of course. Try to arrest the fall before it gets to 125. So you can do this as an exercise, just sitting here stationary, and pick a target. See if you can hit the target. See if you don't exceed your limits. So you can play around between 100, 125, 150. That's a good range to try. So once we hit 130, I'll bring the fire controls back up and try to maintain. Okay. So once again, steam first, and then for 430, we might need maybe I guess like an 8 o'clock position, something around there, and then atomizer to match. If you're not sure, you can hunt for a little bit. A bit more as we're still falling. So we covered the theory of what to look for in a fire and what to do to get it, to get a good fire. There are a lot of variables that will that can make your life a little bit harder. First of all, we still have the blower um, on, and the blower does help you create a draft, but with the increased draft, the flickering of the fire also increases, which can make judging the fire a little bit more difficult. So if you turn the blower back down, you can see the fire becomes a little bit more steady. But just that smoke with the atomizer. Okay, so we got the pressure going back up again. Turn the fire back down. Get back to about 130. So that's how you practice. Firing. Just go back and forth and try to see if you can get the pressure to where you need it to go. So there's a few things that are beyond your control as a fireman as far as the fire qualities go. One being, the big one is the air compressor. If we start the air compressor, you see what happened to the fire is that the air compressor exhaust through the smokestack creates additional draft that can cause the fire to flicker, as you can see, which also affects the temperature of the fire as well. In the same principle, when the engine is moving, the pistons up front, as they move, they exhaust the steam out through the smokestack, creating the same effect. And as the train builds up speed, the airflow over the smokestack will also create additional draft that can also affect your fire. Which is why once the train is at speed, you shut off the blower, since the forced draft would no longer be needed. So with the air compressor running, you will also have to keep up with the pressure here. I don't think it's gonna hit 125. Oh, it might. So we'll increase the fire a little bit to compensate. Keep it over 125. Another another gremlin that can mess with your fire is the priming or the foaming of the boiler water inside. So As the sediment and foam builds up on top of the the boiler water surface, that foam and sediment can mix in with the steam and enter into the atomizer um, steam chamber. And the way that you would recognize that is through well, you you would set up your fire correctly, like it would look here, and without changing anything, you'll start to see the fire either flicker more or smoke starting to come out of the stack or the door, and that's the foam and sediment mixing in with the steam and clogging the atomizer steam nozzle. One cheat that you can always do is that if you find that the air compressor is just running so much that you need to build up pressure, let's say you're starting out, you can always just shut it off. Give yourself some time to get the fire back, and then you can restart the compressor that way. That's about it. I think I've covered everything on firing, on using all the controls, and what to look for, and what affects your fire. Okay, as always, highball.